if you want to make more money in this industry, right? Like there's no, hey, I'm going to do this part time. Like it's either you're fully in or you're fully out, right? Like it's a second, if not third full-time job doing this as an artist.
What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. Today we're talking about everyone's favorite or least favorite subject, money. Let me tell you, it is my favorite subject now, but for the majority of my life, thinking about money literally used to put ice in my veins. I was so fearful of money. Money as it relates to the present, money as it relates to the future, how to spend it, what to invest in. All of those things terrified me. But I am a new person since I've embraced what we call an abundance mindset. And today, we are going to be talking about how to make money and what you need to invest in as an artist with Mario Danza with the Define Group. I met him as the manager of Truth and Lies. He has since expanded his management company. He is so smart. He does not mince his words. He's going to give it to you straight. This convo is no bullshit. He is going to give you real world numbers that you can write down and keep in your back pocket of how much you need to invest and what you need to invest in if you want to play this game and if you want to make being an artist your full-time job. A lot of this conversation is going to surprise you. It even surprised me. But the best part about it is that before you do anything, before you invest even $1, Mario says the first thing you need to do is actually free. And it's figuring out what the fuck your brand is. So tune in, take notes, enjoy. I knew when I met you in person, I was like, this guy's a straight shooter. He knows what the fuck he's talking about. And there's no better person to bring on to talk about what I want to talk about today, which is money. But before we get into that, talk to me about who you are. And I know that you have a new venture, the Define Group. So let's establish that first.
Yeah, no, I mean, background on me, I own a marketing company. We do campaigns for a lot of artists in dance music. I have a network that accumulates with 2 million followers at DJ Lovers Club, if you may know, at EDM Lifestyle, at the EDM Lovers Club. So that's one of the ventures I have. I was a promoter for 10 years. I bought for a lot of nightclubs, live events, stuff around the New York City area, a few other markets, but primarily New York. And now my new venture, which, I've always been a manager, but, this is something where I'm launching as a full company and really building, a nice formal roster of, I have about 7 artists now on this roster. And, some artists are like, long story short, Truth and Lies, another artist, So Dope, I've been managing for almost 5 years now. The other artists are primarily new. They're around, I want to say a year, maybe less, probably 8 months of managing. And so it's just been a lot of ground up work with them, but, things are starting to get along.
That's awesome. So you've really experienced almost every facet of this industry.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I've like to say when I started as a promoter, I remember the days, which I don't think anyone does anymore, of handing out flyers, collecting hard copy tickets. I've done everything from run doors to operate nightclubs to, do digital marketing on all platforms. I was around in the SoundCloud days, the blog days, when TikTok first started. So I've kind of seen, working on all sides, seeing a lot of changes throughout the years of being in the industry.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll get into this because I'm curious how you kind of select your clients, the people that you choose to work with. But that also ties into the main reason why I brought you on the show, because I know you are going to give people real no bullshit answers to these questions. I never write out questions like this, by the way, but I want to cover it all because I can't tell you how many times I've tried to like subtly talk to artists about money, and they are very good at dancing around the conversation, which I get because it is a taboo subject and it's very difficult to make money in this industry. So a lot of artists don't want to admit that maybe they have help in other ways, or, you know, it's just not something they like to talk about. So I think this is perfect. So let's start here. I'm going to throw you an easy question. Can you get by and have success as a DJ without investing a single dollar into your brand?
No, impossible.
Okay.
Straight off the rip. Anyone that says it is, it's a lie. It's impossible. There's so many things that you need to invest in. And, you know, prime instance, like if you're shooting content as while you're playing, that's automatically costing you money out of the gig, you know? But even going further deeper, you know, the days of music just spreading out on its own is just over, right? Like I do a lot of campaigns with a lot of artists. You know, I'm not going to name names on stuff, but the internet is what controls of what gets heard. And yes, DJs playing your records are great. And, you know, there are some things that happen organically. For example, I think Mochak, he's probably the closest one to answer your question. He had an overnight sensation, right? Gained 800,000 followers in 3 months off 2 videos, just organically posting. That is like a unicorn of a situation. That doesn't rarely happen at all, you know? So
it's still a time investment too, by the way.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you want to look at that side, yeah, hours and hours of time, you know,
right.
Not even just on the money side, but you know, if you want to make more money in this industry, right? Like there's no, hey, I'm going to do this part-time. Like it's either you're fully in or you're fully out, right? Like it's a second, if not third full-time job doing this as an artist, right? Because the way I look at it is the music side is a full-time job and or social media branding is a full-time job.
So there's multiple buckets that you have to invest in as an artist. There's the social media and branding, like you said. Then there's equipment. And then there's, you know, software, representation, management, things like that. Mm-hmm. Is there, in your opinion, let's say, I'm not talking like brand new, like just opened Ableton for the first time DJ, but is there someone who has had a little bit of success, played a little bit of some gigs? What is the most important thing to invest in off the bat? Is it the social media stuff or is it something else?
You know, I think that's dependent on the genre and the type of artist that you want to be. You know, say, for instance, right, like a bass music artist, you know, someone in dubstep and you know, trap, stuff like that. A lot of that times that's very music heavy before I think is really social media heavy. So like more music promotion and like money spent on, you know, plugins, stuff like that are really what time is spent. Where, you know, house music, although great producers, at the end of the day, it's a little bit more in the social eye, right? Like take, for instance, a John Summit, a Don Bresky, you know, even like guys like on the come up or have been established like West End, Noizu, and all these ones that have been through things throughout the years. I think social media is a big presence in that, you know, as opposed to bass artists is a little bit more of a cult following on that side of it.
That makes sense. So me personally, as a content creator, I've accumulated equipment and then replaced that with better equipment over time. Like the mics we used on the bus, I didn't have those when I first started. I had like a crappy $25 mic. I think what is overwhelming for a lot of artists is like, I need to get all these things and I need to, you know, get them now. If their focus is social media, what, in your opinion, are some good things to invest in when they're trying to grow for branding, social, that sort of thing?
So, you know, first thing off the rip is I think less on the social side and more on the branding side, right? Like you want a great logo, you want, you know, just great assets around you, press shots, stuff like that. That's very important, right? Like when you're pitching to DSPs, trying to get editorial placements, if you don't have that great of photos or, you know, knowing how to develop that stuff, that's stuff they're going to shy away with you. And listen, look, you're not getting it off the rip as you're coming up. You're not giving yourself the best opportunity and shot if you're not doing that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You need to learn as an artist, right? Test your style. What's going to be your thing? Know your branding and create this image around you. And I think that's done by repetition. Go on Amazon, get a ring light, tripod, $30, $60. That will hold you off until you start learning CapCut. You're editing videos on your own. You're getting used to it, right? And like you're starting to get quicker and quicker and quicker. And when you really start noticing, hey, it's like clockwork for me, right? Like then yeah, it's time to upgrade. Let's get some microphones. Let's go do some outside content, the normal bedroom stuff and show stuff that we've been doing, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The milestones are once you get comfortable and you feel like you're in a good place with like this new thing, whether it's editing, doing your own graphics, then you kind of level up. I definitely did that with this show. I mean, if I compare my episodes and my clips now to what I did, a year ago, it's like night and day difference. So it's like, I said this, I put this on Instagram today, like just get in the fucking arena, like just start, and know that I think people just like hold out. They're like, well, I have to buy like the best mic, the best this. It's like, there are cheap things that will get you by until you're ready for that next level.
I think, and this is no jab at anyone, and everyone's situation is completely different, right? But, I also think like a lot of that times it becomes that artists just don't want to do it. Not because they're just like, I don't need to do it. Nothing like that in a negative way, but truly they just don't know how to. Right. So like they make it overcomplicated for themselves, make it like a mission for really to get this volume out there, to really understand their social media side of things, because truly they just don't know. And, I am the firm believer as a manager that you can never rush that. I never want to put, my artist through something where it's like, hey, try this video of you smacking him with a pancake and then make a beat out of it. And you don't feel like that's your brand and like you're not really comfortable with it. It's just never going to come out good anyway. So, I think the artist really needs to do some digging and understand what they want to be brand associated with on their social side,
That's so true. I talk about branding all the time, and it's something that like is your North Star. If you have your brand down, you know who you are, that is your North Star into making content. If you don't have a brand yet, how are you going to make content? You're just like, it's like too much of a blank slate. And then you could potentially waste money creating stuff that ultimately doesn't serve you or your brand or your audience.
Yeah. And I think mismanagement of expenses is definitely a trial and error. And it's on both sides. Like, truthfully honest, like I started very heavily with Truth and Lies, and we've come a long way together. I think I've talked about that. And I know you might have seen it with Sherm's interview where, we're so close, and the guys that I started with, and I'm close with all mine. All my artists are family to me. It's part of my moral thing. We can get to that. But when you first start in the industry, at first you're like, hey, let's take these long shots, right? Like, let's go do this. And a TikTok campaign will go viral because I saw somebody else do it. And, oh, this social media campaign worked for him, it's going to work for me. And when at the end of the day, if like you're not down to the grassroots and you may be trying to overproduce or hiring so many photographers and videographers for certain things where you think that's thing, but like not having the knowledge of, okay, well, what are we looking for? What are the guidelines that I need to give to these videographers so they get what we want, right? Like, that was a big part. Like when Truth and Lies first started touring, we were just like, hey, let's get a media guy every location. And even though we're not making that much money and we're looking to break even our first tour, we need the content, which is true, right? But not having that guideline of how we want that to look on our socials and giving it to the media person. Because at the end of the day, right, like I get a lot of people like, oh, my media guy isn't that good. But it's like, you gave them guidelines. Exactly. These guys know what they're doing in that facet. So I think it's one of those things that it was trial and error for at least our side of doing it so many times, just learning social media, right? Like, which I always stress to new managers and, maybe clients that come to me and for this type of advice is like, you got to know all this stuff going in before you just start spending. And, you almost not waste money. I never think, investing in the project is always a waste, but it could be money spent better elsewhere. Right.
Yes. God, I feel like I've said those exact words before in that order. It's so true that there's no bad investment in yourself. And sometimes you have to make those unfortunate mistakes to like learn what not to do in the future. I mean, I can't tell you how much money I've dumped into stupid shit that like I'm not even like, but you know what? I learned like I tried to make a course for women. So I used to be a TV news reporter, and I tried to make a course for women getting out of TV news because I had so much interest from people like, how do I rewrite my resume, this or that. I mistook it for, oh, I can make a course out of this and then like sell it and, make all this money, not really knowing how much it took to make a course. Long story short, I probably invested like $6 or $7 into building this thing. And I think I made like $600. So I learned, and it's a really important part of a creative's journey. But exactly what you said, there's that you can be smarter. So just have a game plan before you start spending your hard-earned money.
Sometimes those are paying lessons, right? Like that's like the biggest thing. It's like there's no school for this. There's maybe courses, there's stuff online, but like really you won't know for yourself until you actually try it. I mean, I'm obviously like not saying, hey, whoever's watching, go spend as much money as you can and figure out, but like, that's, I think, part of, like you were saying, like knowing what you're spending. But that lesson, that's the way I look at it, is always positive optimism. Like we're in such a negative industry of, right? Like there's so many things that happen that are just, you might think it's your best work ever. It's just like an artist, right? And you put it out and it just doesn't go the way you thought. Like you're not number one record in the world or whatever the case may be. So it's like when you make those missteps, it's about learning from them and not beating yourself up over them.
Yeah. And like you said, the repetition, because there's so much that's out of our control with social media algorithms. So it might spook people into saying, well, I don't want to spend money on something like this again because it didn't do well. But like you said, it's the repetition. If you can continue to, put your dukes up when things aren't in your favor and keep going forward, like it does pay off. So in terms of the clients that you work with, there's this, have you heard the concept scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset?
Yes.
I'm big on that because I used to have a horrible scarcity mindset. Like I would literally have enough money in my bank account, but I'd be afraid to buy toothpaste because I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to go homeless if I buy this, like bad. And I had to go through this massive transition before I became an entrepreneur to really change my mindset and understand that there's endless money and opportunities out there for me and for everyone else. And I really, truly believe that. So when you work with artists, are you kind of vetting them from like a mindset, even mental health perspective? Like, hey, if you have like a negative attitude about certain things, you maybe aren't the right client for me. Or do you feel like you can coach them, or where do you fall on that?
I think it varies, right? Like I think there's some clients that you can coach where it's like you said, they're more kind of like not scared to spend this money, but like they're like, I don't know if it's going to do well. My client might get upset or, this, that, and the third. But, knowing their personality where it's like understanding that like this money you're spending is building your client, right? Like you're not going to have a video that does first video you put up on one of the pages or doing a campaign or doing a TikTok campaign. Shouldn't expect your first one to go do millions of views, right? Like it's just the reality. But if you're not building, your SEO as an artist and, blogs, are still a part of it, but used to be a big factor for that back in the day. And now I feel like post on Instagram and TikTok and people sharing your stuff or what's going to do it. If I feel like, that client can understand that side of things where it's not about the dollar amount, because we work with all different types of budgets. We don't, we're not like out here like looking, hey, if you're $10,000 minimum, like that's it. Like, no, like we work with all different clients, different sizes. And that's just the truth, because I've always wanted to build with these clients, right? Like I'm not looking, this is dance music, right? Like this isn't really a hip hop sort of things where clients have thousands and thousands of dollars. Like we're looking to build with clients longevity, and we also care about our name, right? I'm a manager myself. Like I wouldn't want a client to come spend money where I don't feel like I would spend money on my client if that was him, right? Like it's just the mindset that I have. I think it's different for a lot of other companies, but that's the truth. But, I've had those clients that have come to us and they're like, hey, I got $100 and expecting out of $100, 20, 30 times like the actual what you're going to get out of it. And it's like, you got to understand, like, you don't go into, even as a videographer, right? You might get your first camera and you might charge $150 for your shoots at first because you don't have that equipment that you can, like that extra lighting rig, that, extra background, whatever the case may be. But you invest your money over time to purchase this equipment, right? Like you said, like get new mics, get better equipment. And if somebody can't realize that you need to invest in a project to actually build it, it's not a client I want to work with. Not because like, I'm too big for that client once itself, but like it's always a lose-lose situation no matter where you look at it. It's either I don't take the business and it is what it is, or I take the business and that business that I've probably not made as much is a huge headache because that client doesn't really fully understand that it's a long-term investment, and any campaign that you do is a long-term investment, not just a short-term,
Yep. It's in my world as a consultant, like I learned early on that the people who overly negotiated my proposal and wanted to cut corners, they were always the pain in the ass clients. And then the clients who accepted my proposal without any questions, they always end up being the easiest. For whatever reason, that's how it always is. And I think it is the scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset. Like those clients trust that I'm going to do a good job. They trust that I'm going to do what I say. And so I think like trust in the process is a big part of it. And I don't think a lot of people have it. And it can, like, I'm not discounting the fact that it's discouraging that the algorithm is changing all the time and it's like a social media rat race, and you just feel like the world is against you when you see other people getting booked and you're not, and you're wondering how this happened. But I think we always forget that like everyone has their own journey, regardless of what people think, industry plans, whatever. Everybody goes through this in some regard. So that's, I guess, comforting in some way.
Yeah, I think especially in dance music in general, right? Like I feel like it's such a renowned sound where it's like you're talking worldwide here, right? Like you look at hip hop, predominantly US, a few other markets, but predominantly US. You look at other things predominantly in that market of that language, where dance music is worldwide. You really just need time and repetition of, it's not a face forward type of genre, right? Like you're not releasing a record and like your face is out in front of everything, where it might be different for, actual singers and stuff like that, where dance music is played on radio stations, played by other DJs playing your music. Like it really takes that time of A, just getting your music known, but B, getting your brand and that music connection, right? Like I think that's like the biggest thing in dance music that makes it even more difficult sometimes than, other genres.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. You're up against other markets. So I want to do like a hypothetical scenario here. And this is something, the clients that I consult outside of the electronic music world is like banks. Okay. So I'm working with like budgets for banks and financial institutions. I'm curious, sitting where you're sitting, let's make up an artist. Okay, let's say there's an artist who has been producing for like the past 3 years. They have 5,000 followers on Instagram, and their goal is to get some more gigs, like do, gigs in other cities, for like a little tour for the year.
Right.
Can you put a ballpark dollar amount on what a good investment into paid social media would be for like 6 months? Could you put a dollar amount on that?
Oof.
It's a tough question. There's so many factors, but if you could just give a range, because I think that people don't even know. Some people think $500 and other people think 10,000. So where would we fall on that?
I think realistically of where that client is at, and you're talking monthly here, I would say a minimum $500 a month. And that's like bare bone minimum. And I can tell you the differences between those. It's all the way to, so it's like, let's say 2,500 to 10 grand, right? Like that is, and 10 grand is like, if you're shooting for the stars, that might be an over investment. If you're counting flights, stuff like that. But if we're talking every single month, it really depends on your output of social media, right? Like if you're sitting here and you're like, hey, I'm going to post, it doesn't even have to be every single day, right? I don't even think the every single day thing works as much for artists as it did a year ago, even a year and a half ago. I think, hey, I'm going to post 5 times a week on TikTok. I'm going to post 3 to 4 times a week on Instagram, right? Like original content, not something cookie cutter that is just easy to mimic. And, you're providing real value in your content. Then yeah, I think $500 a month, right? Because you need that look stuff. You need the blogs to build your SEO up there. You need to invest in ads to run towards your Spotify to grow your music as well on top of it and retarget those people. Maybe you get some page posts to get your look out there and your branding and stuff like that. And the $10,000 might be a little extreme. I think like in a perfect world, like $1,000 a month is where I think is, if you don't fully understand your brand, $1,000 a month for the next 6 months is where you should be at, right? And listen, like it's okay if you don't have that, right? But it's your value of time now needs to play a factor into that, right? Like if you don't have the money to go hire a video editor to get that premium look, then you need to sit down on your computer for the first couple weeks, record a bunch of content, get onto CapCut. That's a free app that's literally downloadable. And you learn every single function and go through YouTube and you learn on your own to save you that dollar amount for that, right? And like you said, time versus actual money. That's why I say $10,000 because, or 2,500 to 10 grand. Because if you're literally trying to do nothing besides just make your tunes and that's it, you're going to do no legwork on your socials, no legwork on your branding, no legwork on your music promo, and you just want people just to do things for you, and you're just going to make your music, put it up, and like expect to invest a lot because you have to get people's value time. You need to get these people that have the expertise to really get you to that next level to get, touring at, first time in markets, you're not even going to make that much, right? Like, it's not like you go invest 10 grand and you're going to get your whole $10,000 back, like, or even 5 grand back and get it back. Like, at the end of the day, most of these first time tours, you're making anywhere from $500 to $1,000, and $1,000 is like, you're going into a really good market, promoter, maybe you're headlining in some small room, and, maybe these promoters don't know as well. But first time, you don't really have a gauge on how many tickets you're going to sell. Most of these people are going to give you support slots, and you're going to get 500. You're going to get 750. Sometimes you're even going to get 250 if it's a big enough artist. But you're going to take it for the look to invest in yourself.
Holy shit, that was extremely valuable. Extremely. I don't think a lot of people know that's what they have to do. I mean, what you're saying is, because you have this knowledge being where you are, that is what you're up against. If you again, if you don't have the funds to invest, okay, we're not like, this is not about shaming people. I want everybody to succeed, and you can do it scrappy. But just know that people who are serious about this are finding a way to invest at least $500 a month. This hypothetical client that I made up, if you're at that level, like that's what you need to be doing. And that's a real wake up call. And I know there's limitations. Like some people have 9-to-5 jobs and they're like, well, I can't, I'm on a salary. But, if you want this bad enough, you get creative. And there's another factor to this that I want to ask you about that's not necessarily making like money off gigs and investing in your artistry. But in your experience, do artists have like, maybe you don't know this, do they have like personal financial plans? Are a lot of artists financially savvy? Do they have a financial plan? Do they know how to budget? Do they invest in like high yield savings accounts, stocks, or do you not really see that in your experience?
That's just like, right, like random person on the street, right? Like some artists do, some artists don't. I don't think that's, if you're an artist, like that's like 100% yes or 100% no. I think that's really on a personality thing, right? Like that's just truth. I think artists eventually get better at budgeting, right? Because, like I said, if you're really looking to be a touring artist, and listen, you don't have to, even first year out, like I said, like you expect to have that money and whatever. You can strictly do it the free way and grow over time and build your following and do it free 99. But like expect, not to say that you're not going to tour at all, but if you're talking about a tour, 8, 12 city supports, I think the first one I did with Truth and Lies we did about 8 cities. I remember their first ever tour. We didn't take home any money from that tour, right? So to answer your question, I think, them to me are like, they're better at me at like their numbers. Like it's like, they've taught me a lot over the years, but as far as that goes, I think you get better and better, even if you're not good at it. So it's like, you might not start off that way and have to start off that way. But when it's like the difference between booking your flight a week earlier or whatever the case may be, or not knowing your routing and, paying an extra $100 could be an extra $100 lost than what you actually made on a little bit of money you might be making off a tour like that, Right.
I think that's why I've seen a lot of DJs complain about layovers, because that is the, more affordable flight option, and it makes sense. If I just to get on my soapbox for 1 second, if artists, and I'm obviously, this is not financial advice. I can't give financial advice. I'm not whatever. Right. But as someone who really cares about personal finance, like the easiest way to make a little bit of extra coin while doing nothing is just getting a high yield savings account or a money market account. Anything that you want to save to invest in your DJ career, put it in there. Don't let it sit in a fucking Chase savings account that accrues, 0.01% interest. It's doing nothing for you. So that's just a little tip, because one thing that I really care about is I think because artists have so much on their plates, they're trying to make music, which is their primary function. They're trying to do social. They're trying to do this and that. Things like taxes, expensing, what can I expense? How can I manage my money better? Those all kind of fall down the priority list. And I feel like if you're empowered with that knowledge, it just trickles down into everything you're doing in a positive way. So, so back to our conversation. Sorry, right. I got a little sidetracked.
Yeah, I love it. Honestly.
I'm very, very passionate about that. So, talk to me about where artists get stuck and how you can help them get unstuck when it comes to investing. Is it more the mental thing that we talked about, or maybe not knowing where to look for the right videographer? What do you see happen frequently?
I think it's so much on branding and the socials. I think artists get very much, because listen, a lot of artists, right? Producers, they come into this because I I love making music, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love making music. I love playing shows. But what comes with that is, well, if you want to play shows for more fees and live off this for the rest of your life and be a full-time business, a full-time job, you need to do the stuff that you don't want to do. And listen, look, I think now with social media and the younger artists coming up, branding and socials has become a little bit easier for a lot of guys. Like, and you see guys that are heavily into it, but there's a lot of producers out there that they don't want to be editing TikTok videos to, push their music that they think is good. And they don't want to, or they don't know how to, right? Like, coming up with that creative strategy to be like, hey, well, this is a smart way to incorporate my tune with my personality. So people will not only get the music side of me, but they'll also get my personality and put two and two together. Right. Like,
Right.
And I think there's guys that just do it fantastic. Like Disco Lines is a prime example, right? Like his music and his branding and socials, he's very, very, you can see that like he knows it down to a T, right? And I think you can have all the professionals you want around you, but if you don't know for yourself and you're not comfortable with your branding and your social strategy and how you want to represent yourself, I think that's the biggest struggle for an artist because the insecurity kicks in, right? Like, well, is this making me look corny? Is that really what I want to be known as? These are all questions that you can tell are floating in an artist's head when they start doing socials. And it's a real almost fear factor. Once you realize, an artist realizes, hey, if I don't do this, I'm going to get nowhere, or I don't want to get to where I'm going. Not saying you can't go nowhere. There's artists out there that don't have great socials that get somewhere. But if you want to be, like I said, full-time, if you want to be striving in the genre that you have, nowadays you need that social media. Like that's where people are going,
That's such a great point. If you don't know who you are going to have fear when you put yourself out there. If you're not 100% like, yeah, this is me, I feel good about this. Like the other day I did an interview with Reaper and I wore he wears a mask and I came out like in my mask, my red light mask, and I looked insane. And like, I kind of second guessed it before I put it on social media. I was like, wait, no, like I'm like just a goofy person. Like this is fine. Like I don't look perfect. I have this stupid mask on my face, but it was funny. It was a good moment. But I think if I would have done that like 5 years ago, I probably would have been too nervous to post it, And so like you said, knowing who you are, if you're secure in that, that also helps you confidently spend money because like, know who you are. So you're willing to invest in yourself. So I love this because like, it all comes back to the brand. It makes so much sense.
I think brand is one of the most overlooked things when you first start out as an artist, right? Because people think naturally, right? Like you come in and listen, look, as a starting manager, who's been with these guys a long time, don't think that I was never like, oh no, we can't. Like we would hear a record that they would make when they first started and we're like, this is it. We're out of here. This is us, right? Like, and, not that the records did bad, but, they don't make you the biggest artist in the world, right? Like, there's anomalies out there. Like, I think, Charlie has a great brand, but A Craze Do It To It, right? Like that record was like one of the biggest records, I think, period in a century. Like Martin Garrix's Animals is another one of those records that just took the industry by storm. And, that doesn't happen overnight quite frequently, right? Like, yeah, there's TikTok videos that can go viral and stuff like that. And it will get you to a certain point, right? But like, if you don't know your brand and you don't know how to capitalize off those moments, it doesn't mean like, oh my God, like there's artists every day that have, that no one really knows and it's more internet music and stuff. They're doing 1 million streams a day on some of their songs, right? Like, but at the end of the day, they don't know their brand and how to put their face to match up with that speed of the record. Yeah. Where you have a song that makes a lot of money and that's great. It's more money for you to invest, but you're missing out on the touring side of things, which in my opinion, you're making 85% of your profit through touring, right? Like especially dance music. So I think it's that battle with artists, you know?
It's a great point. If you have a viral video, if you have something that goes viral before you have a true brand, that viral video is going to define your brand for you. And then you have to live up to it. And that's when you see people say, oh, so-and-so fell off, or so-and-so, I was disappointed by so-and-so's set. And it's like, because it's a lot of pressure when you make that viral video, it's like, well, now I have to be up here. Like this video is here. Now I have to stay up here because this is what people are expecting of me. Maybe that video or that track or something was a fluke. And now it's like, okay, well, now everybody thinks this is my sound, or everybody thinks this, I can put out this quality of work all the time. So it's kind of like you got to catch up with it. Whereas like if you know who you are from the start, it's just a much more sustainable journey. This has been incredible. It's so valuable. The fact that we got to talk about real numbers, because I think that's what we're missing in this industry, the transparency. And then you've got, some people unfortunately setting their rates way too low, which can bring the rest of the industry down. And so I love that we got a chance to talk about this. I want to do something now for my Patreon audience, if you don't mind, ask a special question just for Patreon. But before I do that, is there anything else you want to mention on the podcast?
No, honestly, I thank you for having me. I love the stuff that you do. I've been watching your interviews since you had the guys. And, I think it's great to inform artists and, managers, and the stuff that you're doing is just, it's amazing, right? Because when you first start out, when I first started at least, there wasn't really stuff like this to inform things. And that's stuff I tell Sherm. So I think it's great what like you guys are doing for the scene. And that's really it. Obviously, like you can check out my artist, I guess. I'll do a little self promo in here. Yeah. You can check out my artist, but I love what you guys are doing with these podcasts and your event that's coming up, which I think is amazing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. What do you guys think about those numbers? He said anywhere from $500 to $10,000 a month to invest in your brand if you're serious about being a touring artist. That's for social media, for videographers, social media managers, editors, press, paid placements, you name it. And this is not to shame you or make you feel bad if you're not there yet, because trust me, I certainly wasn't able to invest that much when I first started my business. But at least you have a benchmark now of what to strive for. Now, of course, the second part is knowing where to put that money. You have a pile of money, now what do you do with it? And that's why you should always be seeking out other experts, which, good news, you might have heard me plug my Patreon. I'm so excited for this. I've been wanting to do this for a while. All the branding and business resources you need are under one roof, and my support tiers start as low as $5 a month. I'm also bringing in experts like Mario every quarter to lead a masterclass on subjects you want to learn about. You tell me, and we'll do it. The link to join is in my show description. It's on Instagram. Let's do this, guys. I am so excited to see your growth. I'll talk to you next week.